All right, we're going to continue our video series on the god Marduk. We left off. Now, if you haven't watched part one, you need to highly suggested you should watch part one first before you watch this, because we're starting off here in the Middle Babylonian period. So this is a deity description video on the Babylonian high god Marduk that I wanted to do, and I'm doing it in different parts. So this is part two, and we left off here. We did the old Babylonian period at the very last part of part one, and now we're going to start part two. On the Middle Babylonian period of the god Marduk and his cult. In the Kassite period, theophoric names containing Marduk grew over 10% to over 10%. Let's see here. And the local temple to Marduk in Nippur was firmly integrated and well established. The Kassite kings sometimes gave Marduk pompous epithets, showing Marduk's growing popularity. However, Enlil still ranks as the most important Mesopotamian god, still heading the list along with Anu and Ea. At least 5 Kassite kings bore theophoric names containing Enlil. And Kassite kings, especially Nazi Marutash and Kudur Enlil, are known to have visited Nippur at the beginning of the year. Kuri Galzu calls himself the regent of Enlil, and Dur Kuri Galzu's temple complex holds temples to Enlil, Ninlil, and Ninurta. There are 2 administrative documents from Nippur from the reigns of the 2 Kassite kings, perhaps Nazi Marutash and Shagarakti Shuriash, that mention the celebration of the Akitu festival connected to Marduk. That's Akitu is a spring festival and New Year's celebration. And another text claims the late Kassite king Adad Shuma Usur embarked on a pilgrimage from Babylon to Borsippa and Kutha. So he'd be visiting the gods Marduk, Nabu, and Nergal, respectively. Those are their holy cities. Babylon for Marduk, Borsippa for Nabu, who's Marduk's divine son, and the warrior god Nergal is his city is Kutha. However, there are reasons to doubt the historicity of these texts, especially the alleged journey of Adad Shuma Usur, since the trio of Marduk, Nabu, and Nergal fit the ideology of the first millennium BC. Nonetheless, the texts could be evidence that the rise of Marduk was a gradual process that began before Nebuchadnezzar the First. Similarly, in the god list An equals Anum, the number 50, Enlil's number, was assigned to Marduk instead. Okay. A private document dating to the reign of Ashur-uballit I in Assyria refers to a sanctuary of Marduk in the city of Ashur. Wow. A gate of Marduk was also attested in Ashur in the 13th century. Similar to the Neo-Assyrian period, Marduk was mentioned to receive offerings and gifts in Ashur. In the coronation text of Tukulti-Ninurta, Marduk even received the same amount of offerings as the god Ashur. Oh, wow. The statue of Marduk was carried off by Tukulti-Ninurta I to Assyria, where it would stay until it was returned. The cult of Marduk in Assyria would remain attested in the Neo-Assyrian period. Marduk was found in Ugarit in an Akkadian hymn that may have been part of the scribal school curriculum. That I didn't know. That he was found all the way over in Ugarit? Huh. During the Kassite period, Nabu, previously the scribe of Marduk, came to be viewed as Marduk's son. Okay. So now we get into the second dynasty of Isin period. By the time of the Isin II dynasty, now that is an established syncretism of Babylon and Nippur, and by extension, Marduk and Enlil, was in place. The names of the city walls were switched, with Imgur Enlil and Nimit Enlil in Babylon, while Imgur Marduk and Nimit Marduk were in Nippur. A first millennium bilingual hymn to Nippur links Babylon and Nippur together. Nippur is the city of Enlil. Babylon is his favorite. Nippur and Babylon, their meaning is the same. So that's what the hymn says. The ideology of the supremacy of Marduk is generally viewed to have been promoted by Nebuchadnezzar I and his successors. So that was in... Nebuchadnezzar I was the fourth king of the second dynasty of Isin and the fourth dynasty of Babylon. See here. Nebuchadnezzar's second campaign into Elam and the return of the statue of Marduk that was carried off to Elam by either Shishak-Nahunte or his son Kutir-Nahunte in 1155 BC is thought to be the trigger. However, there are chronological problems regarding the abduction of the statue by the Elamites. Okay. As the statue of Marduk abducted by Tukulti-Ninurta I wasn't returned yet by the Assyrians before the Elamites sacked Babylon in 1155 BC. Johnson suggests that Tukulti-Ninurta could have taken a different statue of Marduk, while the main cult statue was taken by Kutir-Nahunte, while Banyai believes that immediately following the return of the statue of Marduk by Ninurta Tukulti-Ashur, a second invasion by Kutir-Nahunte carried off the same statue? So, okay. Nonetheless, beginning from the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, I like that name, by the way, Nebuchadnezzar. Acknowledgement of Marduk's supremacy over other gods was now the norm. A Kaduru dating to the reign of Nebuchadnezzar claims that Marduk... So this is late Bronze Age, circa 1155 BC. So a Kuduru, now a Kuduru is, we'll go over that, it's a type of stone document used as a boundary stone and as like a record of land grants. Um, was used by the Kassites and the later dynasties in ancient Babylonia. Okay. So, a Kiduru dating to the reign of Nebuchadnezzar claims that Marduk, now the king of the gods, directly um, dispatched Nebuchadnezzar and gave him weapons. And in the epic of Nebuchadnezzar, it is Marduk who commanded the gods to abandon Babylonia. A Kuduru from the reign of Enlil Nadine Apli calls Marduk the king of the gods, the lord of the lands, a title that Enlil traditionally held. Okay. Likewise, when Simbar Shipak, the first king of the second dynasty of Sealand, that's circa 1021 to 1004 BC, made Enlil a replacement throne for the one made by Nebuchadnezzar. In his mind, this was actually dedicated to Marduk. Other texts, such as Akkadian prayers and incantations, also call Marduk the king of the gods. Okay. The earliest copy of the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian epic of creation, surprisingly, was found in the city of Ashur. And dated to the 9th century BC, although the text could go back to the Eson II period. Dali believes that the Enuma Elish may have been composed during the Old Babylonian period, although other scholars consider it unlikely. The Enuma Elish describes Marduk's ascendance to kingship by defeating Tiamat. In the end, Marduk is proclaimed the ruler, declares Babylon as the city of kingship, received his 50 names, 50 being the number of Enlil, while Enlil is ignored. To be fair, Enlil is still a great god in the Babylonian pantheon. Like Marduk is definitely the king of the gods, but Enlil is like right below him in power. In the Babylonian pantheon, he's just not the king of the gods like he was in the Sumerian pantheon and the Akkadian pantheon. For the kingdom of Babylonia, at a certain point, Marduk has become he's the king of the gods. So in Assyrian sources, most of the mentions of Marduk's power and authority came from the reigns of the Sargonids. Generally, the Neo-Assyrian kings cared for Babylon and the cult of Marduk. Shalmaneser III visited multiple Babylonian sanctuaries, including that of Marduk. So, Marduk, though, was being declared king of the gods like earlier on, before the Enuma Elish. So that was being developed a lot earlier on than the earliest known copy of the Enuma Elish. But obviously that's like super important and sacred to the cult of Marduk, the Babylonian cult of Marduk, and the Enuma Elish, the epic of creation. That's like hugely important. Tiglath-Pileser III, after conquering Babylonia, participated in the Akitu festival in Babylon, and Sargon II made Babylon his temporary residence while Dur-Sharrukin was under construction and took part in the Akitu. Okay? Marduk frequently appears in Assyrian royal inscriptions before the Assyrian kings even gained control over Babylonia. In continuation from the Middle Assyrian times, an actual cult of Marduk seemed to have also existed in the Neo-Assyrian period. The Assyrian Divine Directory mentioned that a shrine to Marduk existed in the temple of Gula, the goddess Gula, in Ashur. Gula, of course, is a Mesopotamian goddess of like healing and medicine. She's like the divine physician. She's also a divine midwife. Very important deity for sure. Go over her for sure at some point here in the near future. I like her name too, Gula. Let's see here. Marduk and his son Nabu also shared a sanctuary in the Assyrian city of Nineveh, although it seemed that Nabu was the main deity in contrast to Marduk. Yeah, the Assyrians really liked Nabu. I think at some point, for the Assyrian pantheon in particular, I think Nabu becomes the son of Ashur, the god Ashur. I believe so. One exception was Sennacherib, who, after a series of revolts and the extradition of the crown prince Ashur-nadin-shumi to the Elamites, decided to destroy Babylon. So Sennacherib, of course, that's king of the Neo-Assyrian Empire from 705 BC until his assassination in 681 BC. So he decided to destroy Babylon. Jesus. The destruction of Babylon in 689 BC was, judging from Sennacherib's own accounts, bad by Neo-Assyrian standards. Outside of claiming to have destroyed the temples, and the cult statues, there was no explicit mention of the fate of Marduk's statue. Although Esarhaddon would later claim, that's another Assyrian king, that the cult statue was taken from Babylon. Sennacherib followed with what has been called a religious reform, the infrastructure of Ashur being refashioned in the model of Babylon's, and the Assyrian edition, the Assyrian edition of the Enuma Elish replaced Marduk with the god Ashur, spelled as Anshar. Anshar was a primordial deity in the Enuma Elish too. Let's see, replace Marduk with the god Ashur and Babylon with Ashur. With the city of Ashur. Right. Other texts referencing Marduk were also adapted and changed to fit Ashur instead. This is a late development, though, for the deity Ashur. He was more associated with the god Enlil from early on, and then also the primordial god Anshar, though. And then a late development was to um, kind of like replace Marduk with Ashur. So other text referencing Marduk were also adapted and changed to fit Ashur instead, and a bed and throne dedicated to Marduk were rededicated to Ashur after the furniture was brought from Babylon to Ashur. So, yeah, so this is under Sennacherib, um, the king Sennacherib. Um, let's see here. Okay. Other, okay. The Marduk ordeal contained cultic commentaries on the Akitu festival, reinterpreted to refer to instead Marduk's punishment. However, the more radical reforms were reversed. So, yeah, right. The more radical reforms were reversed under the reign of his successor, Esarhaddon. Yeah. So they're kind of short-lived. Esarhaddon reigned beginning from 681, and Sennacherib, but still a number of years though. Who also oversaw the reconstruction of Babylon and the eventual return of the statue of Marduk under Shamash Shuma Ukin. So that was a vassal. He was a king of Babylon. He was a vassal of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. He was Assyrian, though. He was actually the son of King Esarhaddon. Okay. So the statue of Marduk was not destroyed. It was returned. That's good. Esarhaddon also crafted a narrative. Let's see here. Esarhaddon also crafted a narrative justifying both Sennacherib's destruction and his rebuilding by citing Marduk's divine anger as the cause for Babylon's destruction, who originally decreed for the city to be abandoned for 70 years, but Marduk relented and allowed Esarhaddon to rebuild it. Okay. So Nabonassar, who's that again? King of Babylon. Okay. So is that after? Let's see. Claimed that Marduk proclaimed him lordship and had ordered him to plunder his enemy's land, referring to Assyria. Nabu Nashir was the king's name. Okay. Who only ruled Babylon due to divine anger. He claimed that he killed the Assyrian and laid waste to his lands by the command of Marduk and Nabu, and with the weapons of Era. Now, Era is closely associated with the god Nergal, warrior deity, god of pestilence. And with the weapons of Era, which was the main trio of the first millennium Babylonian ideology. In literary texts from the Achaemenid and Seleucid eras, so that's later on, Marduk is said to have commissioned um, Nabu Nashir to take revenge on the land of Akkad, or Babylonia. In royal inscriptions of the Neo-Babylonian kings, so that's let's see. Begins in 626 BC. Okay. Marduk is exalted as the king of the gods and as the source of their authority, while Enlil is hardly ever mentioned except in relation to the city of Nippur. Enlil is still an important deity, though. Like, he's still one of the high gods. He's one of the highest deities. Just Marduk is the highest. In a late Babylonian god list, all the gods on the list were identified with Marduk. For example, Ninurta was Marduk of the pickaxe, Nabu was Marduk of accounting, Shamash was Marduk of justice, and Tishpak was Marduk of the troops. This syncretistic tendency is observed in other late texts, where the other gods appear as aspects of Marduk. King Cyrus, now that's famous king of Persia. So this is late. This is he was the founder of the Achaemenid Empire. So Cyrus, justifying his conquest of Babylonia, claimed that Marduk had abandoned King Nabonidus. Nabonidus ruled in the 6th century BC. Who offended Marduk by turning his back on the Esagila, in the Cyrus cylinder. So the Esagila, of course, is Marduk's temple. Another anti-Nabonidus text, the verse account, explains that Nabonidus favored the moon god Sin over Marduk. Nabonidus's reverence for the moon god may have been because of familial roots to the city of Haran. And later he even revived the religious institutions of the main sanctuary of Sin. Okay, so we're going to stop there, and then in part 3 we're going to go... that ended like the history of the cult of Marduk, I guess. That there should be a little bit more, but I guess that's pretty good. Because it doesn't end there at all. Well, maybe it'll pick up. I'm sure it'll pick up later on. But because there's still a lot more to go over. Let's see here. Yeah, there's still quite a bit more to go over. If anything's missing, I'll definitely pick that up later. So that will end the part 2, and as always, leave any comments, thoughts below. Let me know. Let me know, like, any interest in ancient Babylonian religion and the deities and Marduk, the high god Marduk. I'm looking for other devotees of Marduk on here. If any of you are listening, and I will be back with part 3 probably like tomorrow, sometime tomorrow. yeah, I'll continue here with a couple more parts to the high god Marduk. Um, and I'll be back. I will be back with some more deity description videos here shortly. Thank you for watching.